Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the NEPDEC webinar. My name is Richard Handcuff. I'm an instructional designer here at Misericordia University. And the presentation today will be by Dr. Mamoun Bader, who is professor of chemistry at Penn State Hazleton. And his presentation is toward understanding Islam and Muslims. And just very briefly, I wanted to go over with you a few things about using WIMBA. We have the slides will be displayed in the large content area, which dominates your WIMBA screen. Below the content area, you have an opportunity to type in questions or to give other responses or elucidate some other information in the chat area, in the text area, which to type into the text area, all you need to do is into the little ribbon that's next to the main room. It says main room, and then there's a little ribbon that allows you to type in there. You hit enter, and it sends whatever you've typed into the chat area. Right above that, on the right-hand side, where you see all of our names listed in the participant area, there are also ways to raise your hand. There's a little hand icon below that. You can raise your hand. There are check marks and check marks and X's to indicate, say, a yes or a no. And also there's a little smiley face emoticon. And if you were to expand the smiley faces, what you would notice is that there is more than just one smiley face there. There are different emoticons to indicate different levels of either approval, disapproval, applause even is indicated there. So you can change your status is what we call that. Now, at any time also, I'm going to enable the microphones, so that at any time you will be able to also speak. In order to speak, what you need to do is you need to click on the talk button, which is right now a gray button right above the text chat area. It says talk. When you click on that, it turns into an orange or a yellow button, and that would tell you that your microphone is live and you're able to talk at that point. Now, obviously, while Dr. Bate is presenting, it's probably not a good idea to just sort of break in and talk. And the more people that talk at once, obviously, we have an issue with understanding what anyone says at that point. So there will be times to ask questions, and that might be when you might want to jump in and use your microphone if you have one. Okay. So without further ado, I think I will now introduce Dr. Oh. Okay. Let's start off real quick with a check to see if people can hear me. If you can hear me talking right now, why don't you hit the green check mark? If you hit the check mark that's below the names, it should show up for us in the column. There we go. I'm starting to see a lot of check marks. So a lot of people can hear me. Looks like the majority anyway can hear me, and that's the important thing. Some people might not know how to use those check marks, but it looks like I'm more and more good. We're getting a whole field of green here. This is wonderful. Okay, so seeing that, what I will now do is I will introduce Dr. Mamoun Bader and let him go ahead with his presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My talk to you today is about toward understanding Islam and Muslims. I hope everyone can hear me. I'm a chemistry professor at Penn State Hazleton, and I will start by acknowledging the Northeastern Pennsylvania Diversity Education Consortium, Misericordia University, and the Diversity Institute, in particular Linda Trumter and Brenda, as well as Richard Handcuff for their help with this, my first experience with webinars. So I hope it works well. I'd also like to acknowledge the Islamic Association of Northeastern Pennsylvania and Dr. Majid Muhyiddin, who has shared with me a couple of his slides on Islamic architecture, which will be at the end of my talk. I will start my talk by basically giving you an overview of some basic Islamic beliefs, a little bit about the Quran and Muhammad, and what do Muslims, people who adhere to the faith of Islam, believe about Jesus. What does Islam say about important topics of our life, time, such as terrorism, human rights, justice, issues related to women, family, and the elderly. And then most of you are probably students who learn about Islam. The first thing you learn about is the 5 pillars of Islam. We'll talk a lot about that as well. And I will give an overview of Islam and Muslims in the United States and northeastern Pennsylvania. And then in between my talk, actually, I'd rather pause after each few slides, and then I'll pause for questions if there are any. But before I start, I'd like to say a few words about why am I doing this. I'm a chemistry professor here, and my field of study is science and research. And why am I doing this? The fact is, I'm doing this as in response, basically, to my responsibility as a citizen of the United States of America and a citizen of northeastern Pennsylvania. I'm doing this as service to my community, service to my faith, and to educate people on things that they may not know, and to correct some misinformation that they may have. One of the things that I became more inclined to do this is I did some of this work, not as intense, but some of this prior to 9/11. Since 9/11, the degree of obligation became much greater, and I realized that how much people lack information about Islam. And the annoying part also is that there is this information. All of a sudden, a lot of people who knew nothing about the faith became experts on all kinds of networks talking about faith, yet they cannot tell the difference between Islam as a religion and Arabic as a language. So that is a big. So my philosophy as an educator, as an academic, I think one of the biggest problems that we face is ignorance. People fear what they don't know. And my approach is, hopefully, by the end of this talk, some of you will have a better understanding who Muslims are. And if you have a colleague or a student or a professor or a doctor who's a Muslim, that you realize that they are just normal, decent, in most cases, very positive contributors to the well-being of society and humanity in general. I hope you can bear with me, and I try to make it as concise and as brief as possible. Thinking of where to start, I came across this verse from the Quran, and a saying. Actually, this is a saying of Prophet Muhammad. I'll start with the Quran, which we believe, as we later will talk about, we believe as Muslims that this is the word of God, and there is a message to humanity from God. Imagine this as a message, a phone call, a letter from God to all human beings. O mankind, we have created you from a male and a female, and have made you into nations and tribes for you to know one another. That's the purpose of life. If you ask what is the purpose of life, this is straight from the Quran. Truly, who's better? Truly, the noblest of you with God is the most pious. Truly, God is all-knowing, all-aware. This is from the Quran, chapter 49, verse 13. Prophet Muhammad on the plains of Arafat in his farewell sermon. And I encourage those of you who are studying Islam to go back to see what was the last message, the content. It's about a page and a half. What was the last message from Prophet Muhammad to humanity? He didn't say, "O Muslims." He said, "O people, your God is one, and your forefather, Adam, is one. An Arab is not better than a non-Arab. And a non-Arab is not better than an Arab. And a red person is not better than a black person. And a black person is not better than a red person, except in piety." All what this says is that we as human beings, we are really, truly a big family, a one big family. So I chose that to start my talk, and then we start with the definition of Islam. What is Islam? Islam is the religion Islam is the religion of a complete. I must wait a little bit here for some technical help. Okay. The religion of Islam is a complete acceptance and obedience to the teachings of God, which He revealed to His Prophet Muhammad. The root from a linguistic standpoint, from the Arabic language, is there are two nouns or two roots for this word, Islam. The first is silm, which means peace, and that defines the nature of the relationship among human beings. And istislam, which defines the nature of the relationship between human beings and their creator. So, having said that, we can move into some basic Islamic beliefs. The first thing we do believe in is that we believe in one unique, incomparable God who has no son nor a partner, and that none has the right to be worshipped but Him alone. He is the true God, and every other deity is false. He has the most magnificent names and sublime perfect attributes. No one shares His divinity nor His attributes. In the Quran, God describes Himself, say, He is God, the One, God to whom the creatures turn for their needs. He begets not, nor was He begotten, and there is none like Him. This is chapter 112, verses 1 to 4. So again, in summary, basically, as Muslims, we believe that there is one God, He's the creator, and He alone to be worshipped. And this is called Tawheed, the oneness, the monotheism of Islam. We also believe in angels. Muslims believe that there are creatures created from light, and these creatures are called angels. We do not see them. They are honored creatures. They don't have free will. They obey God. So the angels worship God alone. They act only by His command. Among these angels, the angel Gabriel, who brought down the Quran to Muhammad and other revelations to messengers before him. We also believe in God's revealed books. Muslims believe that God revealed books to His messengers as proof for mankind and also as a guidance, source of guidance. Among these books, the Quran, which God revealed to Prophet Muhammad. We do believe in all the books that God revealed, the Bible, the Torah to Moses, scriptures for Abraham, and to David. We believe as Muslims that God has guaranteed the Quran from any corruption or distortion. And I quote here from the Quran, indeed, we have sent down the Quran and surely we will guard it from corruption. We, as Muslims, recite the Quran in our prayers or portions thereof. We will talk about that in a few minutes when we come to the pillars of Islam. Muslims also believe in the prophets and messengers of God. The difference between prophets and messengers, prophets get prophecies, messengers are asked to deliver a message. And normally messengers receive revelation in terms of books. Muslims believe in the prophets of messenger of God, starting with Adam, including Noah, Abraham, Ishmael, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, and Jesus, amongst others. And the Quran says that some of the messengers were mentioned, up to 25 names are mentioned in the Quran, and others are not mentioned. So whether we know their names or not, we believe in them all. And we do not make any distinction between any one of them. We believe Islam is the religion of God. They all called people that the Creator is one and He alone should be worshipped. Muslims also believe that these messengers are the cream of humanity. They are the best humans ever. Yet they are still humans. They are human beings who used to eat and drink and have and get sick and die eventually. So they do not, none of them has the divine qualities of God. They were supported by miracles to help in delivering the message of God. I will spend some time here on the belief in the Day of Judgment. We believe that one day the world as we know it will come to an end and all human beings will be resurrected. This day is called the Day of Resurrection. And people will be judged by God. In other words, Islam teaches don't judge one another. The judgment belongs to God, the Creator, and He judges all of us. He knows what we reveal and what we conceal and what we do in this life. So, according to what? According to beliefs, meaning, as we will quote some of the sayings of the Prophet later on, God looks into our hearts and into our deeds. Not how much money we have in the bank or what degrees we have. Basically, ultimate justice will prevail, will be established on the Day of Judgment. And as such, human beings are warned not to be judgmental of one another, but look at your own self and try to carry on in your life in a way that is do good deeds, be kind, and leave positive things behind you. So that is regarding the Day of Judgment. A lot of writing here, but I thought I would expand on this a little bit, but I'll go over this. We believe in Al-Qadr. Al-Qadr means divine predestination. It's a little bit difficult to explain, but I'll try to explain it in simple terms. I am going to borrow from my background. Sure. Linda is asking a question here. Go ahead, Linda. Right. 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 Yes. That's a very good question. Can I go ahead and the question Linda is asking here is there are sects of Islam. There are several sects like Shia Islam. These basic Islamic beliefs are shared by all Muslims. We as Muslims also have our own sects like in other religious denominations. The issue of Shia and Sunni Islam, actually the roots of that is political. Who is supposed to have led the Muslim people after the death of Prophet Muhammad? The Shia believe that the Shia means supporters of the family of the Prophet. And so they believe that his cousin Ali should have been elected or chosen. The Muslims chose Abu Bakr, then they chose Umar, then they chose Uthman, then they chose fourth Ali. So the Shia are kind of upset that that's unfair. So but in terms of Islamic beliefs, we all share the same set of beliefs. So the predestination, I'm going to borrow a little bit from my background in terms of in science to explain this. God knows what happens, what will happen, and what has happened. But His knowledge of what will happen does not induce you to do wrong. And some people have this wrong. In other words, oh, God wanted me to do that. I mean, it's my predestination to sin or to do this or that. Actually, that is blaming God for your own. It would be unjust for God to punish you for something that He forced you to do. So we believe as Muslims, we believe that a human being has a circle in which he or she has a free will, and that circle is within the will and knowledge of God. I'll give you an example. If you have a piece of glass, a thin glass, and you carry it and you throw it on a hard floor, what's going to happen to it? It's going to break. How do you know? From previous knowledge with the properties of matter, That glass is an amorphous solid that is going to shatter. But what actually breaks the glass? Your action of dropping it. If you don't drop it, it doesn't matter whether you know it would break or not. So God knows what will happen before it does happen, and He will not hold you responsible for something that you did not do. Even if you intend to do something and you don't do it, then you are not responsible for that either. I hope this explains the issue of predestination. I have friends who are Buddhists who are very interested in this kind of definition of predestiny. I think it's a good point to pause here for any questions about the basic Islamic beliefs. If there are any questions, I'm willing to address those at this point. I should be able to read them here. Okay, there is a question here from Linda, and Linda asks, are there any women messengers? We as Muslims believe that all messengers are men, with due respect for women. However, in the Quran, there is reference to 3 women who received some kind of, not revelation as messenger, but some kind of prophecies from God. One of them is very interesting. That is the mother of the Virgin Mary. When she was pregnant, she offered to dedicate whatever is in her womb, this baby in her womb, for the service of God. And that is in chapter 3, Ali Imran, the family of Imran. She dedicated the Virgin Mary before she was even born to the service of God. And I can recite this in Arabic, and if you like, I can just go this. That's one reference. The second is that the Virgin Mary herself was communicated to by the angel Gabriel that she would carry a baby. And she said, how can I have a baby? I don't have a husband, and I've never had any relation with any man. How could I? It was said to her, this is a word from God. And all what is going to happen, that God says be, and it is. A third woman is the mother of Moses. The mother of Moses, we don't know her name. Her name is not mentioned in the Quran. But there is the Pharaoh who has decided to slaughter every newborn male from the children of Israel who's born. He has some prophecy that someone is going to overturn his kingdom, and that is a male from the children of Israel. So all the newborn male boys were to be killed. So now, in the Quran, God says, وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَىٰ أُمِّ مُوسَى, and we revealed to the mother of Moses, and أَرْضِعِيهِ, give him a good breastfeeding. And when you fear for him, what do you expect? And this is an example of strong faith and strong belief. When you fear for him, you throw him, put him in the river, put him in a box and put him in the river. You would expect that common sense for us as human beings, that if a mother is fearful for her child, she will hold him tight. No, God told her to let go of him, and He promised that He will return her son to her. These are 3 examples, and I can think of a 4th, and that is the wife of Pharaoh. She believed in Moses, and she was a believer, and she asked God to make her escape the wrath of Pharaoh and to replace her with a house with God in paradise. So to answer this question, there are no messenger women, but there are references for very noble, good women, and we as Muslims believe that the Virgin Mary is the most pure woman ever to walk the face of this earth. Hope this answers the question. Yes. Michaeline, okay. Okay, the issue of predestination again. I realize this is not an easy topic to explain. There is a question from Michaeline. She's asking about predestination again. What this says is, as Muslims, we believe that God knows everything, knows what happened, what has happened, what will happen, and what is happening. His knowledge encompasses all that we do, small or big. Now, a human being has a free will to use his abilities to do good or bad, but he or she is responsible for these choices. You know what is right and what is wrong. When you do wrong, actually this brings... Actually, this... Am I on? Can you hear me? Yeah, it's got echo. What did I do here? This.
You pulled it out.
Oh, I pulled it out.
Pull it out.
These two? Yeah.
Yeah, make sure that they're the right ones.
Can you hear me now? Okay. I'm sorry for that. I pulled the headphones out. Yes. For the first time. Okay, I go back to the issue of free will. That the human being has a free will to choose what to do, and God will hold you responsible only for what you do. Now, if you do something wrong, we have the issue of sin in Islam. If you like, I can go over that in a moment, the issue of sin. God basically, we spoke about, we believe in angels. Angels don't have free will. They all obey God. Human beings have angelic part that they can do great things, and we are also susceptible. We are not angels. We are human beings. We are susceptible to mistakes. So what do you do when you do something wrong? Islam teaches us if you do something wrong, you fix it. You show remorse, you repent, you ask God for forgiveness. There is no relationship, there is no need for any intermediate between you and God. You, in any language, you just in your heart, without speaking it, God knows that you really are sincerely sorry and you show remorse. Number two, you stop that wrong. Number three, you decide that you will not do it again. Number four, if it has to do with the right of other human beings, you must fix it. If you spoke ill of someone, make sure you speak good about them. If you took someone's property, you return it, then you repent. So, and if you do so, if it is sincere repentance, God will forgive you, because God is most forgiving, most merciful. The issue of predestination is that God knows what your choice will be before you choose it. But it doesn't mean that God made you do it. You have a choice of doing this or that, and God knows what choice you will make before you do it. Is that clear? I hope. Michaeline, can you type in whether you are satisfied with the answer? Thank you. Any other questions? All right. I guess we can move on. Now, I made reference at the very beginning to the Quran, and we said there is also, I made a reference to one of the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad. So are there other sources for Muslims to go by other than the Quran? Yes, there is what we call the Sunnah, and from which the word Sunni it means the tradition. It means the tradition. If you follow the tradition of Jesus, then you are a Sunni Christian. Okay, that's what it is. The Sunnah or the tradition in Islam is what the Prophet Muhammad said or did or approved of. In other words, his sayings. I don't know if you can hear me, right? His saying or something he did, such as we pray. How do we pray? He said, pray as you see me pray. We learn prayer. The Quran tells us to perform prayers, but doesn't tell us when and how many units each prayer and what times and all that stuff. We learned that from the tradition of the Prophet, or approved of, such as one time he saw his companions playing wrestling in the masjid, right? Or saw kids playing in the masjid. So he saw it and he said that's fine. So that means if our kids come, which they know this very well, when they come to the Islamic Center here in Wilkes-Barre, they run around and they say, well, the Prophet did it and approved of it, so we should be allowed to play even football in the masjid, right? So anyway, the Sunnah is comprised of hadith, which are the sayings. These are reliably transmitted reports.
Jack!
Are we okay to continue, or can hear some? Audio has been disabled. So I can, okay, I can speak. Okay, I'm sorry. So we also have this wealth of sayings which were reported by the companions of the Prophet who heard him say things, and in many times, in many cases, many of the companions reported the same thing. And if these are found in books of hadith, there are many of these books. One of which was Sahih al-Bukhari, the correct collections or the accurate collections of hadith by Imam al-Bukhari, who was originally from Bukhara, which is part of Uzbekistan today. And he started his journey to learn the sayings of the Prophet at age 9 as an orphan. He came with his mother to Mecca and he said, I want to stay here and learn. He never came back. And to give you just an idea of the accuracy of this individual, he's a tower in terms of scientific methodology. He would travel from Mecca to Baghdad and from there to Damascus to Cairo on camels or whatever to collect one saying. He hears someone or some of the companions have to collect one saying. And one time he came to learn a saying of the Prophet from a man who was trying to trick his horse. He has an empty sack and bringing it to the horse to pretend that there is food. So the horse has run away from him, so he wants to catch his horse. And when he found that he is cheating the horse, he told him, I don't trust you. You are not trustworthy to take a saying of the Prophet. And he dropped his, and he went back to his home. That's how accurate in terms of the reliability of the transmission of the sayings of the Prophet, let alone the Quran itself. So we believe in the accurate compilations of the sayings of the Prophet as a source of knowledge for us. The Sunnah explains the Quran, explains what it meant, and it's a practical demonstration for how to perform. For instance, how do you perform pilgrimage? How do you fast? How do you pray? How do you pay charity? And so on. I will mention here, this is a crowded slide, but really I think this different aspects of the sayings of the Prophet. The most perfect of the believers, these are sayings of Prophet Muhammad from Sahih al-Bukhari, the book I just referred to. The most perfect of the believers in faith are the best of them in morals. You can't be a believer and a good religious person and a liar, or a dishonest person, or nasty. You can't. You have to have good character. You have to be truthful. You have to be kind. You have to be honest. And the best among them are those who are best to their wives. You can't be mean and nasty to your spouse and claim to be a good believer. That is just, it doesn't add up. So the most worthy of your kindness are your household, your neighbors, as we shall see later. So these are again sayings of the Prophet, and I think these are words of wisdom that you don't have to be a Muslim to follow them. I think any decent human being, any reasonable human being will find, wow, this sounds like something I can adopt. None of you believes completely until he loves for his brother what he loves for himself. In other words, you can't be selfish. You have to be, you're perfect. You have to like for others what you like for yourself. I think in English we have a saying, treat others as you like to be treated. I mean the same thing. Being merciful. The merciful are shown mercy by the all merciful. If you are mercy towards others, you forgive others, you let go. You don't pick on every little thing. Forgive people. People are, subject to, if you have a friend, if they are 90% of the time, 80% they're kind, and sometimes they kind of really get on your nerves, forgive. We are not perfect. So that's what the Prophet is saying here. If you forgive, God will forgive you. If you are merciful with others, you are deserving of mercy. Show mercy to those on earth, and God will show mercy to you. Smiling to your brother is a charity. A smile is a charity. You don't have to open your wallet. I mean, a smile. It's very simple, but yet it's very powerful. When you see someone walking the hallway, people who are in colleges, and sometimes we kind of really, academics, we kind of really get we get too focused on our work that's really like we become a little bit uptight. So we need to loosen up and spread more smiles following this advice from the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. A good word is charity. So when you speak, try to speak good. There is a nice way of saying things and there is a nasty way of saying things. Why don't you can say the same thing in a nice way? Neighbors, whoever believes in God and the last day, meaning the day of judgment, should do good to his neighbor. If you, in fact, there are many ahadith, many sayings of the Prophet on this. I will just give you a summary of some 7 neighbors in each direction. Your neighbor, not only next door neighbor. And there is a warning about having, throwing your trash towards your neighbor's side. A specific warning. La yu'min. You cannot be a believer and your neighbor is on the receiving end of your trash. It's bad. So you have to be kind to your neighbors. If they smell what you're cooking, send them a plate. That's actually a saying of the Prophet. Send them a plate. Don't let them smell that something smells good next door and you never even share food with your neighbor. So you've got to share with your neighbors. God does not judge you, and this is important again, God does not judge you according to your appearance and your wealth, but He looks at your hearts. That's where God looks. Your heart. Clean it. You can be clean on the outside and your heart full of hatred and jealousy and envy and all kinds of things. You can never gain the love of God with a heart filled with hatred and jealousy and prejudice. And clean your heart as you are keen on cleaning your clothes and your body, the outside cleanness. We need to clean the hearts. And looks into your deeds. If you have a good heart, your deeds will be good. You can't have a bucket of water and the bucket of water is leaking a bucket of fresh water, and what leaks out of the fresh water bucket is going to be fresh water. If it's dirty water, it's going to leak dirty water. So our actions and our deeds reflect what is in our hearts. That's what this saying is saying. And this saying, I don't know if anyone at Penn State is listening to me. Pay the worker his wage before his sweat dries. I get paid on time, so I'm. That's not to say that I'm not getting paid, but I do get paid on time. But if you hire someone, you cannot belittle or shortchange people. You have to give them their rights, and that is in particular with people who work with you. If you have anyone working with you, make sure that they get paid, even as they are finishing their job before their sweat dries. These are some of the sayings of the Prophet, and I thought maybe. Those of you who are interested, that you can go online and try to find more of that. But really, I think you can see the flavor and gives you a reflection of who is this man. The Day of Judgment, I think we did that already, right? I'm sorry, this is by error here. What is the Quran about? I mean, we mentioned the Quran. We mentioned some examples of the sayings of the Prophet. The Quran, or we as Muslims believe that it's the last revealed word of God. There were books that were revealed before it, as I mentioned earlier. But what does it talk about? If you were to read the Quran, it talks about subjects which concern us as human beings. If we are concerned about wisdom, doctrine, worship, transactions, law, But its basic theme actually is highlighted in red here, is the relationship between God and his creatures. So what is the purpose of life? Where do we come from? Why we are here? And what's next? These are the questions that the Quran does a very good job in answering. I want to make a note here that the Quran actually is in Arabic. Any translation of the Quran is an approximate meaning of the Quran. The actual text is in Arabic. So an English translation of the Quran is not the Quran, it's a translation, and in most cases it's done by non-native Arabic speakers. So if you read something in English that doesn't make sense, most likely it doesn't. Check with someone who speaks the language. I think this is extremely important, because I've seen some people come and ask me, well, I read in the Quran, don't do this. It says it's just like doesn't make sense. And you'll go back to the text itself, and you'll find that these are people who have translated mostly Yusuf Ali in the early 20th century. These are enormous contributions. However, Yusuf Ali was the first actually to translate the Quran. He was not a native Arabic speaker. He was from what is now Pakistan. Okay, so again, if you see something that doesn't make sense, most likely it doesn't. Check with someone who speaks the language. Also, the Quran talks about detailed teachings of a just society, proper human conduct, and equitable economic system. I have a question from Virginia here. Is there an Arabic to English translation that you would recommend? Actually, the one I mentioned by Yusuf Ali is probably the most, and there are editions where the English language is more simplistic now, I think. And there are a lot of footnotes for, I guess, people who are interested or who are researchers or students and academics who are studying Islam. I think Yusuf Ali translation is a good one. If you are interested in obtaining a copy, please send your mailing address to Berenda at the Diversity Institute here, and I would be more than glad to provide you with a free copy. Okay? Quite welcome. You're quite welcome, Virginia. All right. Who is Prophet Muhammad? A little bit about Prophet Muhammad. Prophet Muhammad was born in Mecca about 570, the year 570. He lived 63 years. He was an orphan. His father died before he was born. His mother died before he reached the age of 6. His grandfather took care of him for a couple of years. Then his grandfather died. Then his uncle took care of him. He remained in Mecca. He was a very honest person. He didn't know how to read or write. He worked in commerce with Khadija, whom he later married. She was 25 years. She was 15 years older than he was, and he was 25. She was 40, and she's the only woman with whom he had children. And he didn't marry until he moved to Medina. He received the revelation at age 40. He used to go to a cave called Cave of Hira on the outskirts of Mecca, and he used to contemplate. He received the revelation during the month of Ramadan, which we will talk about later, and that is the month in which we fast. The Prophet stayed in Mecca 13 years. The people of Mecca were idol worshippers, worshipped stones and idols. They attempted to kill him. He immigrated with his companions, some of whom were persecuted and tortured and killed. He stayed in Mecca 13 years, then he migrated to Medina to the north, about 100 miles north. He lived in Medina for 10 years, and he died at the age of 63 in his house in Medina. He died with his head in the lap of his wife, Aisha, at that time. Any questions? How are we doing time-wise? We're fine? Yes. There is a question here from Linda in the room. there is no other writers of the Quran other than Muhammad. Yes, there is Sandra Morton question also. I will go back. I think this is an important topic. I'm trying to rush a little bit here, but let's say I go about the Quran. Okay, we said what the Quran is about, and I'll try to clarify who wrote the Quran. The Quran, it's a very important point. The Quran was revealed over a period of 23 years. So it wasn't revealed all at once like Moses, all at once, like Torah. It was revealed over a period of 23 years. The portions of the Quran, most of which was in Mecca, the 13 years, dealt with creed and faith. The oneness of God, the belief in angels, the Day of Judgment, the basic Muslim or Islamic beliefs that we talked about earlier. Now, in Medina, there is a Muslim society now. In Medina, after the migration to Medina from Mecca, the Muslims migrated to Medina, and there is a Muslim society. Muslim society, there are transactions, business transactions, marriage, divorce. You see that the portions or the verses or the chapters of the Quran that were revealed in Medina deal with human society. You want, let's say, inheritance laws. All these things were mostly in the portions of the Quran that were revealed in Medina. Now, the Prophet, as I said, did not know how to read or write. The passages of the Quran would be revealed to him. A passage, maybe half a page, 1 verse, 2 verses, 5 verses. Now, he would recite those, teach them to his companions. Among the companions, he had 7 at one point, up to 15, their names are the writers of the revelation. They would write these passages of the Quran on pieces of skin or wood or stones, all right? And also the Muslims memorize the Quran. In other words, if you ask even a Muslim child now, 6, 7-year-old, he or she would memorize some 30 different chapters of the Quran because we recite it, we need it to recite in our prayers. And let's say someone who wants to divide an inheritance. You go to the Quran, you find how do you divide it. So the text itself is not just, it's used on a daily basis. Okay, how to fast, how to do pilgrimage, how to pray, how to give your charity, how to deal with your children, with your spouse, with your neighbors. I mean, all of that is, so during the life of the Prophet, none of his sayings were recorded. Only the Quran was recorded. And that was compiled immediately after he died. Abu Bakr, the first caliph or khalifa, the first to really lead the Muslims after the death of the Prophet, he gathered the writers of the revelation, and he charged them with compiling it in a book. Put all of that in one book, and all these pieces were put together. Now, he found objections. How come you do something that the Prophet didn't do? He said, well, the Prophet, when he was alive, the revelation was still coming. Now, no more. That's it. We close it. And then this is the Quran that we have. Now, you need to know that Abu Bakr lived only 22 months after the Prophet. So this was done within 22 months after the death of the Prophet, the compilation of the Quran itself. And it was collected as a book. Now, with the expansion of the Muslim areas, now there is a need for people in Egypt and Iraq and all these places. What is the Quran? You guys have one copy. So the third Khalifa, whose name is Uthman, he made 6 copies of the original one and destroyed all these pieces of wood and he made 6 identical copies. He sent one to Mecca, one to Medina, one to Kufa in southern Iraq, one to Basra, also in central Iraq and Kufa, and Basra and Baghdad and Damascus and Cairo. 2 to Iraq, 6 copies. Some narrators say he made 7 or 8, but I think probably 6 is closer. So now let's say people became Muslims in parts of what is now Iran or Kazakhstan or Uzbekistan. The closest part to them is Baghdad or Basra. They would come and make a copy of the Quran that was sent by Uthman to Basra, and they would make a copy identical to that. Someone in northern Africa, in Morocco, he would come to Egypt and make a copy of the Quran that is in Cairo, but the one in Cairo and the one in Basra are identical. That explains why Muslims have one copy of the Quran. We have one version. That's it. Not even a single. And in my judgment, I think that saved us a huge headache that this has happened. And that is a very reliable methodology. And as I said earlier, a lot of people, thousands of people memorize. I mean, in the Muslim world today, there are competitions for memorizing the Quran. You have a child who's 10 years old, memorize the whole Quran from Indonesia. Ask him, what's your name in Arabic? He doesn't know how to reply, but he memorizes the whole thing in Arabic. I've done this, actually. I've spoken to a child who really memorized the whole Quran. Ask him, Masmuk means what's your name in Arabic? Say, what? So this is now the sayings of the Prophet were not recorded until the Umayyad period, which means about some 60 years. Now the Quran is already, so we are not afraid of mixing the sayings of the Prophet with the Quran. And the style is different. The style is completely different. You can, the sayings of the Prophet became important because now the companions, more than 120,000 of them, only 2,000 remained in Medina, and most of them started dying off. And these are the ones who heard the Prophet. How did he do? How did he behave in such situation? So someone said, wait a minute. We've got to gather the sayings of the Prophet and actually protect it from making up. And I can tell you a story that someone was selling like some kind of sweet, and he made up a hadith that the Prophet said, this kind of sweet is good for your health. And people say, wait a minute. Now people are starting to make things up and attributing them to the Prophet. We can't do that. We must go back, and we have what we call the chain of narrators. Let's say, you heard this. You're telling me this saying of the Prophet. Who taught you this? And that person from whom? Then you go study the lifespan of each one of them. Did they actually meet? Did they live? Did their lives overlap? If not, reject it. Throw it in the trash. Not. So out of, I mentioned the story of Imam al-Bukhari, who was from Bukhara, which is now in Uzbekistan. At age 9, he started collecting the hadith. He collected 120,000 sayings of the Prophet. He studied each and every one of them. If it contradicts with the Quran, it's thrown out. He studies the chain of narrators. And he studied each and every one. If someone is forgetful, it's weak, throw it. If someone is a liar, throw it. If someone didn't meet someone and he said he heard it from him, throw it. So if you go back to his book, out of 120,000, he only recorded close to 3,000 sayings of the Prophet. He threw away 117,000. So you can see that this is a very meticulous methodology that is involved. Because of the time, I really don't want to dwell on this, but if you are interested, there's another question here. Yes, I will. I mean, this is a question from Rosetta Adder, and she's asking, basically, given the diversity of the Muslim people, how does the Quran reach all believers in its purest, truest form? I mentioned a little bit here about how the Quran actually was originally gathered, collected, written, and documented, and distributed throughout the Muslim world. Memorization is a big thing. I mean, if someone is reciting and he or she forgets or makes a mistake, anyone in the line behind the person leading the prayer, which we call the Imam, is capable of correcting him or her. The diversity of Muslim people, I think this is a very good point. If I showed you, actually there are some pictures that I could have incorporated into my talk, but I opted out this morning. I deleted them. If I show you a picture of a group of Muslims, you won't be able to tell one from another. Every human race, Asian, white, black, blue eyes, green eyes, anything, you can't tell. And they are all Americans too, and that picture too. I thought that was a very good picture, but there is, I hope, Rosette, Adera, did I answer your question? If you can hear me, please, if you type in your answer, reply. Or should I? Is clapping. Joyce is clapping. Thank you, Joyce. You're quite welcome. I see. Oh, some people are leaving. Okay. All right. So I hope this clarifies the sayings of the Prophet. Linda's original question here about how these sayings were compiled, right? I want to move on a little bit here and choose for you. What do we Muslims believe about Jesus? Well, much of what Christians do. A lot. I mean, you would be surprised how much we have in common in terms of Jesus. I can. Uh, okay. What do we Muslims believe about Jesus? We love Jesus. We believe in him. When we say his name or the name of any messenger or prophet, Jesus, Moses, Abraham, we as a matter of politeness, we say peace be upon him or upon them. You can't. We have to believe in all of them. If you deny one of the prophets or messengers of God, you are not a Muslim. You have to believe in all the messengers of God and all the books, whether you know what these books are or whether you know the names of these messengers or not. And we consider him, Jesus, one of the greatest of God messengers to mankind. The Quran confirms his virgin birth. I will read for you a verse from the Quran. Remember when the angel said, remember I mentioned earlier about the question of women messengers. The angel spoke to Mary here. This is the verse I was referring to. The angel spoke to Mary, but does that make her a messenger? No. She received revelation, prophecy. She was not asked to deliver a message of God to anybody. Oh Mary, God gives you good news of a word from him. So Jesus is a word, and that word is be, and he was. Whose name is the Messiah. We believe he's the Messiah. Jesus, son of Mary, revered in this world and the hereafter, and one of those brought near to God. He will speak to the people from his cradle and as a man, and he is of the righteous. She said, "O my Lord, how can I have a child when no mortal has touched me?" He said, "So it will be. God creates what he wills. If he decrees a thing, he says to it, only be, and it is." So that's what we believe in Jesus. We believe in his virgin birth. We believe he's the Messiah. We believe he's one of the greatest messengers, closest to God. But we do not believe that he is the Son of God or that he is God himself. The Quran actually tells us that Jesus, the example of Jesus, is similar to Adam. At least Jesus has a mother. Adam has no father, no mother. And Eve was created from Adam. She has a father. She doesn't have a mother. So as if God illustrating for us all different possibilities of creation. The rest of us from a father and a mother. And I think there is another slide here about the sayings of Jesus or what we believe in Jesus. I will share some more. So he was born. The case of Jesus with God is like the case of Adam. This is again quoting the Quran. He created him from dust, and then he said to him, be, and he came into being. During his prophetic mission, Jesus performed many miracles. We believe he performed all these miracles that you find in the Bible. But that doesn't make him God or the Son of God. These miracles are purely by the will of God, by the support of God, to help him convince people to believe in God. Once they believe in God, he would never say that, oh, I am God myself. If I ask you a question, did Jesus pray? I asked this question to many of my Christian friends. One of them was actually the priest. He said, of course he did. To whom did he pray? To God. Well, I pray to the same God that Jesus. Muslims pray to the same God that Jesus prayed to. As simple as that. So we have the same God. We believe in it. And I at one point, one of the things that makes me want to do some of this educational outreach for my community is like once I was listening to these TV stations where you have a preacher, and he says, I once had a Muslim. I told him, my God is bigger than your God. I mean, this is almost childish. I mean, this is ignorance. I mean, of a general person, a general public person, let alone a man of God, to speak like this. Yes, there is a question here from Lopez, right? Please clarify the difference between prophet and messenger. Yes, I mentioned this earlier. A prophet is someone who receives information or prophecies from God without being asked to deliver them. A messenger his mission is to deliver a message from God to people. And in most cases, messengers, so every messenger is a prophet, but not every prophet is a messenger. I hope that's clear. There's another question here. Yes, there is a question from Jennifer Penning here. I don't have to read the questions. Okay, I'm sorry. That saves me some time. That's good. The question is basically about children. Of course, you've seen, the media can actually give you part of what is going on. I'm sure many of you have seen on networks madrasas, right? Madrasa. It's sort of like, it seems like, do you know what madrasa is, right? Madrasa is an Arabic word which means a place where people learn. So when I go to school, school is actually madrasa. If you translate school into Arabic, it's madrasa. It's where you study. So madrasa is, whether it's technical school, high school, elementary school, religious school, non-religious, secular school, it's madrasa. So madrasa is not something madrasa, like kind of really scary boogeyman kind of. You've seen people reading Quran and kind of really doing like this. This is nothing traditional. Some Sufi schools of spirituality, they like to go like this. Like, I'm sure if you've watched the Western Wall in Jerusalem, some Jews, when they pray, they go like this, nod their heads. Is it part of Judaism? As far as I know, it's not. If you pray without nodding your head, it's okay. Okay, so I guess now the real question is, do we teach our children to be intolerant? The answer is no. And actually, I can tell you that you can quote the Quran. Verse, I see my memory here, is 255. It says in chapter 2, Al-Baqarah, it says, La ikraha fi din, no compulsion in religion. Period. That's God speaking to us human beings. Me, you, whatever you, there is no compulsion. Truth is clear and falsehood is clear. You choose, you meet your Lord. Period. He will judge you. And on the day of judgment we will know. But there is no compulsion in religion. And that's why, unfortunately, I think the early Muslim generations, they understood this better than some Muslims today. You see, in the Middle East, there are Arabs who are non-Muslim. There are Christians in countries like Lebanon. About 50% of and Lebanon has been under Muslim rule for more than 1,400 years. Nobody forced anybody to become Christian, to become Muslim. There are Jews in Morocco, in Iraq, in Palestine, in Syria, until today, in Yemen. Nobody forced them. I think the Muslims, the early generation Muslims, understood this very well, that there is no compulsion in religion. You choose your faith. And the Prophet himself, when the Christians from Yemen came to visit him in his mosque with all their crosses in his mosque, it was time for them to pray. He allowed them to pray in his mosque while he's sitting there. So this is tolerance. You can't be more tolerant than that. If you look at Jewish people in Europe, they never enjoyed the freedoms that they enjoyed under Muslim Spain. The Inquisition, after, you all know, I guess historians and people of theology who study religion can add to this much more than I can. So Islam does teach tolerance. We teach our children to respect others. However, what we don't see sometimes is that other children don't deal with our children very well. So we have Muslim girls who are afraid to wear a veil to cover their head because there are other girls make fun of them. That's not right. That's also... And we have Muslim kids who wanted to change their names from Muhammad to Mike because kids pick on them. So we try to do, but again, for Jennifer and everyone here, we have people who twist and make the text say what they want. And that is a real danger. And we have extreme forms in every religion that I know of. You have extremists in every faith, and it is our responsibility to make sure that we communicate to you. My job here is to communicate to you. Trust me, I hope you are with me on this, that I'm not trying to say what is politically correct here. I'm telling you Islam as it is, honestly. I mean, I'm not trying to say what is, what sells or what is popular. This is what Islam is, really.
What about conversion? Does Muslim traditions like yourself look for conversions? Is it hard?
Yes, yes. That's a very good point. Even though if we don't go, I think many of these are excellent questions, and actually it basically is steering the talk. I like that. I think that's good. So there is a question from Linda here about conversion. You can see it. We as Muslims, our job is to explain our faith to others. We do not force anyone to accept Islam. If we have in our Islamic center here, we have a lot of people who are interested. We have, I can tell you from the high schools, Dallas High School visited with us, Misericordia University students, and actually next Tuesday we have a class from Misericordia, Dr. Mary Hinton's classes visiting with us. We'd love to speak to you. We'd love to welcome you. We'd love to let you come in and see what we are doing, that we are not making bombs or anything. We are just decent, good people. You can come and visit anytime, announced or unannounced. And my contacts are with Linda Trumter here, with Brenda, and you can reach me, and I promise you that I will reply as soon as I can, and I can arrange for you to visit individually or as a group. Now, do we go out and try to trick people into entering Islam? No. We have a situation. I will share with you this story. That is a true story that happened in our masjid, in our Islamic center here. About 10 years ago, there was this young lady from Shikshini. The first time I heard of Shikshini. She was a computer scientist working at one of the companies, and she's interested in Islam. She's interested in the language, in Arabic. She believes that Arabic calligraphy is beautiful. She wanted to learn it. So she came, and I told her, okay, you can come to the Sunday school. We have Sunday school for our kids. And we teach them basically the basics of their faith, and to have them to get together so that they have a sense of identity. They watch how we pray, and they pray with us. They come for the pizza. To be honest with you, most of them, they come for the pizza. Quite honestly, that's once we switch from pizza to something else, they didn't like it ever. Anyway, so that's, and they play also. They play, as I told you earlier. The Prophet said it's okay for kids to play in the mosque and the masjid, so they do that too. Now, what I was saying is that this lady, she came to the Islamic Sunday school for the Islamic Center for 4 years in a row. Every Sunday, her handwriting in Arabic became better than mine. And I worked with her. She is interested in Islam. She would sit and listen. She was Catholic. And not even once, I or anyone in this, we tried to, so she came. One day, we had a priest who has converted to Islam from Texas. He's visiting with us. And guess the first thing he did? He forced her to become a Muslim right on the spot. Oh, you have to become Muslim today. You don't know whether you will. And she came to me crying. I mean, this guy just like forced me. I thought that doesn't count. You go and study, and you just take your time. Nobody's. You're not a Muslim. Don't worry. You're still Catholic. Don't worry about him. And I'm just sharing this with you. So I told him, why did you do this? I mean, she's crying, and he said, well, I mean, this is how you have to be a little bit kind of more. Use the tricks that I learned as a priest before, or like a missionary. He was a missionary in many places, and actually he became a Muslim on the hands of one of his targets, a student in one of the African countries. He explained for him few things. He told him, well, we worship God, and that's how it is. He became interested, and he became Muslim himself. So the conversion is there. If you are interested, it's very simple, very easy, but there is no one who's going to go out to actively recruit you to become a Muslim. It's our job to explain for you what the faith is. If you are interested, you know where to find, and we have no rituals. As Muslims, I have a Catholic friend who is a professor at NYU. He told me, Mamoon, you need a pope. You Muslims need a pope. Unfortunately, we don't. I don't know if fortunately or unfortunately, we don't have a pope. We don't have an authority. We have scholars who understand the text, understand the language, understand the collection of the hadith. They know how to explain it. And even from the time of the Prophet, his companions, some of them were strict, others were more less strict. And this is very well known in Islamic theology. For those of you who are, if there are any professors there of religious studies, I can share with you something that you probably will never come across in any textbook. And the companions, one of them is Ibn Abbas. He was the cousin of the Prophet, and he was a knowledgeable person. He was young. He was a kid, actually, when the Prophet died. He was 10, 12 years old. But he was very knowledgeable. And he is very relaxed in interpretation. He's very kind of liberal, you would say. I don't know if I should use liberal, but there is Ibn Umar, who was also his, a little older, but he was tough on himself. Tough. He would pray all night. He wouldn't like to sleep at night. He wants to pray all night. And the Prophet advised him, don't be tough. Then this same person who was tough on himself, Abdullah ibn Umar, Abdullah the son of Umar, when he became old, at 80 years old, he said, I wish I listened to the advice of the Prophet when I was young. I'm too old now and I can't sleep. I made a commitment to pray all night. I wish if I have to go back, I would have followed Abdullah ibn Abbas or Ibn Abbas' school, which is be easy on yourself. Don't. There is an easy way of doing things and there is the difficult way of doing things. Any questions? Oh, do Muslims look for conversion? Okay. I think we can move on. This is an issue that I really would like to touch upon. Terrorism, of course. Before I start, quite honestly, I think Islam is unfairly treated in the media. You probably know it or you don't know it. Let's say the most recent event. A professor shoots 3 professors at University of Alabama. Did anyone bring up her faith? Anyone knows her faith? In the audience, if you do, please type in your answer. A guy who flies his airplane into the IRS office in Austin, Texas. Anyone knows his faith? Let's say his name was Muhammad or whatever. Just think about this for a moment. Even if his name is a Muslim name, we all are going to suffer. And my son actually once told me, what the hardest part of this whole thing, the 9/11, why do I have to suffer for someone else's crime? These are crimes done by someone who happens to be Muslim. There are more than 1.3 billion of us out there. We are bound to have the nasty and the good and the decent and the excellent and the superb and everyone in between. So I think the media kind of really overplays things. I can use with you, we have in the United States a lot of good people. We have Nobel laureates amongst Muslim community in America. We have a head of NIH for 6 years under President Bush, a Muslim surgeon, a Muslim medical doctor. In this community here, which we will talk about later, we have more than 300 families. I am not exaggerating if I can tell you that we have at least 150 MDs in the community. Come to the masjid on a Friday prayer. You will find every specialty you will ever need. I hope you don't need them, but you will have everything from the oncologist to the gynecologist and everything in between. We are in the business of saving lives day in, day out. So Islam as a religion, it's truly the religion of mercy and peace. And even though people make fun, religion of peace. You all have to do is just listen to some of the talk shows on radio. Outrageous stuff, literally. If you listen to them, if I were non-Muslim, where are these Muslims? I want to grab someone and choke them or something. Does not permit terrorism. The Quran, God says basically, God does not forbid you from showing kindness and dealing justly with those who have not fought you about the religion. Remember, the Muslims, the Prophet was driven out of his home in Mecca. He was almost murdered. God loves just dealer. The Prophet, do not betray, do not be excessive, do not kill a newborn child. He also says, whoever kills a person having a treaty. In other words, a non-Muslim living in a Muslim society. When you get a visa to a Muslim country, there is a religious decree among Muslim scholars. If someone has a visa to a Muslim country, he has a treaty. You cannot touch them. They are immune. If there are crazy people who are doing things in the name of the faith, I really can't do much about it. I wish I could stop them. The only thing is that these things. Listen to the saying of the Prophet: whoever kills a person having a treaty with the Muslims shall not smell the fragrance of paradise, though its fragrance is found from a span of 40 years. 40 years traveling, you can smell the fragrance of paradise. You shall not even smell it. He listed murder as the second of the major sins. The first is to make equals with God. And he even warned that on the Day of Judgment, the first cases to be judged between people on the Day of Judgment is that of bloodshed. Bloodshed is a serious business in Islam. Furthermore, on the issue of terrorism here, Muslims are even encouraged to be kind to animals, and we are forbidden to hurt them. There are two sayings of the Prophet. A woman was sent to hellfire because she imprisoned a cat. She won't give the cat food, and she won't let the cat go out to eat on its own. So God punished her, sent her to hellfire. And the man was granted paradise because he offered a dog. He offered a dog a drink of water, a thirsty dog. He was thirsty, and then he found a well, and he got some water. He came out of the well. He found that the dog is thirsty. He said, "This dog is as thirsty as I was." He went back. He got some water with his shoes for the dog, and God showed mercy to him and granted him paradise. So if you are, that's how you are supposed to be to animals. How about human beings whom God created with His own hands and honored them and dignified them? How could you dishonor them or attack them or hurt them? Additionally, of course, this is regarding slaughtering animals. You have to be kind, and you're not supposed to slaughter an animal while another animal is watching. You have to be kind to animals, and you slaughter animals for food only. I think this statement speaks for itself. So inciting terror in the hearts of defenseless civilians, wholesale destruction of buildings and properties, bombing, maiming innocent men, women, and children are all forbidden and detestable acts according to Islam and the Muslims. Do some Muslims do it? Yes, they do. They do it to one another, unfortunately. So what the faith says is one thing, and unfortunately, in many cases, what people do is quite another. I'll talk a little bit about human rights in Islam. Islam provides many human rights for the individual. Some of these are the sanctity of life and property to all citizens, whether Muslims or non-Muslims. Islam protects honor. You can't gossip about people. You can't spread rumors. In Islam, this is punishable, actually, in Islam. If you live in a Muslim society, you spread, oh, do you know about him or about her? Mind your own business. Spying, following the... there are people who look for dirt. If you want to look for dirt, you can go to someone's email or text messaging or get a phone record of somebody. I mean, is that Islamically allowed? No. That is not allowed. That's completely forbidden. So in Islam, insulting others or making fun of them, even winking at people is forbidden. You can't make fun of people because God created them. If you're making fun of what is created, you are making fun of the Creator Himself. Truly, your blood, your property, this is saying of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Truly, your blood, your property, and your honor are inviolable. Racism. I started with this slide. If you remember the first slide, "Oh mankind, we created you from a male, and we are one big family." We are one big family. That's what Islam teaches. God looks into our hearts, our deeds. A white is not better than a black, neither a black is better than a white. God looks into our hearts and our deeds. Look at your heart and look at your deeds if you want to know how God looks at you. If God will be pleased with you or not, look at your hearts. And each and every one of us know, and these are two sayings, one saying of the Prophet and one from the Quran. Women, issues of women, of course, they always come up, and the people think that we mistreat our women. You have to look at the status of women before Islam. The Arabs before Islam were cruel to women, just like others. And if you look, those of you who teach or learn philosophy, you should look at how women were treated in Rome, or by the Greeks, or by ancient civilization in India, and so on. I did not quote any of that, but Islam, some people became Muslims at the time of the Prophet with 14 wives, 20 wives. Some people, when a husband dies in pre-Islam, the person inheriting him inherits the woman also. If she's beautiful, he would marry her. If she's not beautiful, she has to buy her freedom out of him. He would throw his garment on her and said, I inherited her as I inherited his wealth. That's how it was. In Islam, a woman, whether single or married, is an individual in her own right. The Prophet worked for his wife, for Khadija. She was his boss. How many of you know that? She was his boss. She has the right to own her wealth and dispose of it and her own business, and without any guardianship from her husband or from her father or anyone else. She has the right to buy or sell, give gifts and charity. She may spend her money as she pleases. My wife knows this very well, I must say. I should stop here for a question, I think. I see a couple of questions. Okay, okay, there's a question about the veil. There is a veil and there is a head cover. A head cover is required in Islam. And if you look at the Madonna pictures, you know, the paintings, if you look at the Virgin Mary pictures, what do you see? You see a veil. I hope that explains. And if you look at, you know, actually I was looking at veils of women of religion. It's unbelievable. I didn't know that there are so many traditions. Actually, in Jewish, I grew up in Jerusalem, so I know a lot of Jewish ladies. They have very beautiful long. I mean, if you can't tell a Muslim woman from a Jewish woman in the marketplace in Old City Jerusalem, you can't. So this is part of our religion, and I hope when you see a woman with a head cover or a veil that you show some respect, that she's practicing her religion. That's all is to it. She's not being oppressed. She's not being forced to do so. If she chooses so, she's following her religion. If she chooses not to, she answers to God, why didn't she to? I'm afraid girls make fun of me at school. That's her answer to God. That's how she will answer to God. And I hope that when you run into a Muslim woman or you're evaluating or interviewing someone for a job, don't look beyond the veil. Don't look beyond the head cover and see it as just a matter of chastity, purity, and she's basically following her own faith. There is another question is about honor killing. Honor killing is forbidden in Islam. There is no such thing. This is Arabic culture, as cruel as I said in the old pre-Islamic history. And I really want all of you hearing me who are interested in issues of women to go online and search for the Prophet Muhammad's final sermon. 1/3 of that talk is issues of women. He was a big champion of women and women's rights. You would be very pleased. You think that a women's activist is the author of these words. You should go back and read them, especially those of you who are interested in women's issues. Unfortunately, as I mentioned earlier, the culture, the honor killing is no such thing. If a woman, let's say, commits adultery, it's not up to her husband or her father or her brother to kill her. It's forbidden. That's a killing. That's a murder. That's a crime. And a crime, if you kill, you get killed in Islam. And it is not your job to go snoop around. Someone, I was reading in an Islamic website about, I have 5 minutes. Well, I'm running out of time here, about someone asking, is it permissible to spy on my wife and go through her cell phone records, for instance? I'm jealous. The answer is no. Big no. Islamically speaking is big no. This is spying. And there has to be trust. So honor killing is not part of Islam. It's reminiscent of horrible cultural issues. The best amongst you are the best to their wives. The most worthy of your companionship in your life is your mother. Your mother, your mother, 3 times, then your father. So a woman is respected while as a daughter or as a wife, or she has the right to choose her husband. If you don't like your husband, a woman came to the Prophet, listen to this. She said, my husband is a nice guy. He's a really good man, but I don't like him. I just don't like him. He said, do you give him back the gift that he gave you when he married you? She said, yes, give it back. She asked for divorce. And she was granted it by the Prophet himself. Another girl her father agreed for a man to marry her before he asked her her opinion. She said, no, let's go to the Prophet. He and his daughter came to the Prophet. And the Prophet said, you have to ask her consent. You can't offer her for marriage for someone without asking her consent. She said, oh Messenger of Allah, I just want to teach men a lesson. Now I agree to marry this guy. But I just want to teach my father and men that they do not control us, they do not own us. They have to ask our opinion. Then it's up to us to agree or not. Now you learn the lesson, and it's recorded in the books of the sayings of the Prophet that every Muslim knows this hadith. No Muslim can challenge me on this because it is part of our faith and religion. Let's say someone does this thing and goes and offers his daughter for marriage without her consent. He stands in violation of Islam and the teachings of the Prophet. I guess okay, tattoos are not allowed in Islam. Anything that changes permanently the creation of God is not allowed because it's a deformation of what God has given you. Piercing of ears for girls is allowed. Beyond that, piercing of tongues or any other part of the body is not allowed. Tattoos are not allowed. So anything that deforms your plastic surgery, unless if it is necessary medically. It's not allowed in Islam. It's forbidden. That would be violation of the tenets of Islam. Sex is allowed through marriage, period. And that's basically anything that leads to it is discouraged as well. I think I should go through my slides here and choose one or two that the 5 pillars of Islam. Of course, we don't have time for that. I think we can do. All right. I want to share with you some pictures of some Islam in the United States and in northeastern Pennsylvania. It's difficult to generalize how many Muslims, but there are anywhere between 4 to 7 million. The census is on now. We are encouraging our people to fill it in. In northeastern Pennsylvania, we have about 300 families, as I mentioned earlier. Early Muslims arrived in the 18th century. Muslims, as I said, they could be black, white, converts, immigrants, 2nd, 3rd, 4th generation Muslims. I would share with you a couple of slides that I actually borrowed. I acknowledged Dr. Muhyiddin, who spoke about Islamic architecture at Penn State. And these are some of the architects, Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem, Taj Mahal. This is in Spain. I will share with you some of these pictures here. And I will leave the talk actually here for you. This is a quotation from the Norton History of Technology that many of the familiar mathematical, geometrical terms, algebra, algorithm, zero, these are, Arabic in origin. That Muslims did actually contribute to human civilization, even though some history books choose to ignore. They go from Greek to medieval centuries or 15th century all at once. I will share with you here an inscription, an art from the Dome of the Rock that tells you how Muslims upheld respect for other religions. We believe in God and that which the prophets received from their Lord, and we make no distinction between any of them, and unto him we have surrendered. These are some of this is I will choose a couple of these slides here. A science article about Islamic art. This is the leading science magazine, February 2007. So you can see that we have a lot of art and calligraphy. I will try to finish in a couple of minutes. This is physiology of the eye. And this is the guy who suggested the number 0. Algorithm, Al-Khwarizmi. His name is in Arabic, Al-Khwarizmi. This is a page from his book in which he suggests there should be a number called 0 for nothing. And that is all computer scientists out there should actually take a look at that. And this is a book of medicine that shapes of plants that extracted medications from. I think this is here. I think there is one or two I wanted to share with you. One more actually. I don't know if I find it. Yeah, this is a quotation by a leading artist. This is M.C. Escher, Tessellations. He went to Spain and he studied Islamic art in Spain. And I conclude with his quoting him here. This was the richest source of inspiration that I have ever tapped. With that, I thank you all for your attention, for your being here, and for your interest. Thank you.
Says, wish we had hours more of this. Thank you. Thank you very much. Clapping, excellent. Thank you. Clapping.
Wow. So it went okay, I guess.